What's going on, Bills Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude, that's your leading the charge. And today I'm really glad to have a longtime brother here that will talk Bills with us and the state of the Bills and also the culture, the Buffalo sports culture, compare it to Brazilian sports culture as well, and have some interesting discussions. Can't wait to have this talk. So, without further ado, let me introduce you the guy that will be part of Bill's front office at some point, a cap manager or something. So, Greg Tompsett from Cover One, welcome to the show, brother. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Always fun. I'm still waiting for my job offer, but no such luck yet.
It's gonna come. It's gonna come for sure. You're doing your part for sure. It's a matter of time, brother. But yeah, it's actually the title of the show today, and will the Bills be fine? It's a curious case of everything kind of seems imploding, two losses in a row. We are sick of a lot of stuff, but the team is still 4-2, right? And we still have the reigning MVP of the league. So how are you with all this situation right now, Greg? Because we are entering or going through year 9 of McDermott, and obviously a lot of great stuff done by him and Brandon Bean as well. But at the same time, we kind of stuck in this place where we can't be confident enough we'll get over that hump.
Yeah, it's tough because on one hand, my show co-host Aaron Quinn put together a really good thread of this moment each of the past 4 or 5 years where we've
Mm-hmm.
lost two in a row and everyone's been questioning the GM and the coaching and the coordinators and does Josh have a problem? Do we have a receiver problem? Do we have a defense problem? We've hit this moment each of the past 4 or 5 years and then normally turned around and rattled off 7 straight or 11 straight or whatever it might be and had some really impressive stretches. So obviously we have history that, in general, yes, we're going to be okay. Like that part's there. I guess what really got to me was, yeah, but this is the fourth or fifth straight year that this has happened. Shouldn't we have gotten better at avoiding this? Or, yeah, but we didn't have the highs of some of those seasons. I know last year Baltimore beat us much worse than either of these two losses. Like Baltimore destroyed us in that game. And then Houston was a painful loss because that was at the time thought to be like a playoff contender, that we were going to face that team in the playoffs when it comes. So those two losses felt really impactful from a playoff standpoint, from a seeding standpoint, and like, oh man, are we going to be able to get by those teams in the playoffs? So this time, the Patriots are off to a nice start. They're not ready to do that kind of thing. We're not going to play the Falcons in the playoffs, but we also beforehand we had that Jaguars game where we destroyed them and felt really good. Like, okay, well, we've at least seen the ceiling here. I don't think we've seen a ceiling game. I guess that Jets game was pretty good. But I don't know that we've seen like a game where they played really well from start to finish. So I think that's the reason there feels like there's more anxiety this time, is that we haven't seen everything come together. We'll get to some of the other things here, I'm sure, that we'll talk about that should give us reason for optimism looking forward. But I get why there's anxiety in this moment.
Yeah, man, and yeah, you put it perfectly, and Aaron Quinn obviously also with reminding us about the last few seasons, but that's where the talk starts to go to a direction when we start talking about team culture. What is a good season for you as a fan? And I know it can sound a little bit, maybe we are too spoiled, or maybe we are too demanding, and when we talk, because I have a huge audience here in Brazil, obviously with the work I do in Portuguese as well, and we're gonna talk about different cultures, different sports, even when talking soccer culture. For example, here we can go an entire season with 3 or 4 different coaches if the team isn't winning. They change coaches all the time, and okay, this guy worked already 3 months and his job isn't good enough. Let's change. and sometimes it works, and at the same time,
I have a
when you have
for
yeah.
your audience. Um, Part of it is, and again, spoiled or entitled is to the eye of the beholder. It's all about expectations, and
Hmm.
that we are now at a point where the expectations are higher. So I'll use next year's World Cup as an example. The finishes, if the U.S. and Brazil both got knocked out in the first round of the elimination stage, they both made it through group stage and get
Yeah.
knocked out in the first round of the elimination stage. Well, they made it equal parts, but one country would be celebrating about like, oh my god, I
Yeah,
can't believe we made
exactly.
it through the group stage. This is fantastic.
Exactly.
I can't believe we made it into the elimination stage. And Brazil's going to be firing their coach and asking what's wrong and how in the world did we get
Yeah,
knocked out in the
exactly.
first round of the elimination stage. It's
Exactly.
all about expectations. We're now at a point where regular season success isn't enough, and that like, yeah, we know we can do that already. What are you doing to get us over the hump to get to that Super Bowl and ideally to win the Super Bowl?
Exactly, because like, okay, I don't doubt them about being able to turn it around to come back looking better from the bye week and have a good game against the Panthers and maybe go on a run, beat the Chiefs in regular season. We've seen it a lot, right? And okay, we know we can win the division. We know we can make it to the playoffs, win a wild card round, but how about winning three straight games against the best coaches, the best teams, not being overcoached, or outcoached, or outplayed by better rosters. And that's where, especially Bills Mafia here in Brazil, I can feel they are very, very done with all this situation. Like, okay, I know this team, maybe it implodes, but I believe they will come back stronger and go on a run, win the division still. I also think here in Brazil, especially, huge Patriots fan base, so people are already, oh, Drake May is the next Brady and the new Josh Allen, he's going to be the MVP, like, come on, Mac Jones was there at some point. So, but I know we can win the division, go to the playoffs, but I honestly, Greg, I can't be confident enough anymore that McDermott and Bean, they will surround Josh with enough talent, and I keep Josh out of this equation because I've seen Josh playing amazing football in the playoffs with the right weapons around. And recently it's been more difficult. Like last playoffs, Josh wasn't that stellar Josh in the playoffs because he probably didn't have enough weapons anymore, or the offense went in the direction trying to impose the running offense more, and the passing offense, obviously, we've seen them struggling. So is it time for, I ask you, is it time for Buffalo as a fan base to become more like a Brazil fan base in the World Cup, getting knocked out, instead of an USA fan base in the World Cup getting knocked out? Do you think it's fair?
It's getting close. It's getting to that point where even like I have been a McDermott apologist as strongly as just about anybody. And even someone like me and others like me,
Mm-hmm.
we have to acknowledge that there is a point where even if I think he would go on and be successful somewhere else and that he has proven he is an organizational builder and a culture
Mm-hmm.
creator and would raise the floor of any failing organization, like a place like Tennessee and what they're going through right now, or whatever other, the Saints or
The
whatever it may
Jets.
be.
I think
The
about the
Jets, yeah,
Jets.
the
I
Jets.
believe if
Um,
McDermott goes to the Jets, he makes them competent,
Correct.
and
I think he immediately would raise the
yeah.
floor of competitiveness and those things there. That I don't. I think that we too often throw around things like, oh, he can't get it done. He's never going to be the coach to get them over the hump, because people said that about Andy Reid in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen other coaches have that happen, and that wasn't going to be. They weren't going to be the one, and then they go somewhere else and they are the one. But I will say that there is a line where, like, okay, even if we realize, okay, we're not saying you're a bad coach, we're just saying your message is no longer bringing the right emphasis here, and that you've kind of lost the team in the locker room, and that's the key piece. It's not even the locker room; it's Josh
Yeah.
specifically. So if Josh Allen loses faith and confidence in Sean McDermott, that is the only thing that can actually change this. That is the only thing that will get Terry Pegula to move. He is not going to fire Sean McDermott. It doesn't matter how many
Yeah.
fans have a vocal response. Sean McDermott has made Terry Pegula way too much money. This is now his most valuable asset. He has turned that. He knows he's going to go to playoff games. He knows he's going to have success. The only thing that will turn that is Josh Allen telling him, "Hey, I don't think I can play for this guy anymore." That's the only thing that I could see changing it. And people talk about that Andy Reid change from Philadelphia. They forget he didn't get fired after the 4 NFC Championship game losses. He got fired because he went, one season was 7-10, and then the next season was 4-12, or 7-9, and then the next season was 4-12. If Sean McDermott goes 7-9 and 4-12, of course he's going to get fired. The challenge is Andy Reid didn't get fired after a divisional round or an NFC Championship loss. He got fired because he lost the team. So again, if Josh Allen stays healthy and we miss the playoffs, he'd be out. But if we go in and make the playoffs again in there, the only thing I could see changing it would be Josh Allen telling Terry Pegula, "I've lost confidence in Sean McDermott."
Yeah, that's awesome because that goes directly with my next question to you. People bring all the time the Sabres, obviously, same ownership from Pegula, and how they haven't been successful, and the general manager stays there like 7 years. I believe they say it's still the same. I don't follow closely the Sabres or hockey enough,
Good for you.
but luckily I have Botafogo here. Okay, Greg. So it kind
Oh,
of
we'll get
makes
to
the
that.
same.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, but yeah. So since Pegula knows what is it to have a team that he can turn it around, and having the Bills always, like Ben says, knocking. Maybe they will stay knocking forever and never open the door, but they are knocking, and the Sabres can't even get near knocking on that door. People say like Pegula won't make this move no matter what, especially now with a new stadium. He needs the team to bare minimum continue to be this in this kind of stage, making the playoffs and showing the fan base that they are close enough at least, right? And just like you said, having Josh makes things easier to go that direction. It's not like I'm saying, oh, McDermott doesn't have any impact, Bean doesn't have any impact. No, not at all. Actually, Greg, I love McDermott as his culture, his personality. I have a lot of respect for him as a man, as a coach. I love the way he likes to have things the right way, and being the same way. He seems like a nice guy. I thought that rant against the guys in the radio show was a little bit too much from him, but everybody makes mistakes, and still, I like them as people. I like their job, but I don't think it's anything special to the point of some fans point out like, "Oh, remember the drought? Remember before McDermott?" Like, man, we didn't have a Josh Allen before McDermott before the drought. If I always look at that 2014 team from Doug Marrone and Kyle Wharton at quarterback, and I firmly believe if you insert Josh Allen on that team, you have a team capable of going deep in the playoffs, maybe contending because they have a really strong defense and some weapons on offense that Josh would be able to work with. So it's not like they've done an extremely awesome job that if they are out, everything will implode. I believe the Eagles, for example, you mentioned, they in those 9 years won the Super Bowl twice already with two different head coaches, two different quarterbacks, and they simply fired a Super Bowl winning coach in Doug Peterson when he lost the locker room, and so.
Well, you look at here in American college football, you look at what Penn State just did. So that was the guy who came in. Penn State, historically, if you go back like 30, 40 years ago, they were
Okay.
a national powerhouse and they won national championships and thought of that way. Their
Mhm.
fans still kind of thought of themselves that way, even though they had become very mediocre and
Mhm.
weren't even going to bowl games. They were having losing
Mhm.
seasons that had never happened before. So then
Mhm.
James Franklin comes in, and I apologize, it might have been 9 years ago. I don't remember exactly how many. And
Okay.
all of a sudden raised the floor to where, like, oh, we're back to being,
Mhm.
10-2, 9-3, 11-1, playing in big bowl games, contending to be part of a national championship. But he kept losing to the best other teams. Like,
Mhm.
once he got to that level, he just kept losing to top 10 teams, and he had a crazy record. Like, it was like 2-18 or something against
Mhm.
top 10 teams.
Mhm.
And then that kept happening, and now it got to a point where, hey, even though earlier this year they were ranked like number 2 in the country and were thought of
Mhm.
very highly, he lost 3 straight games,
Mhm.
one in a really painful game, and then 2 games that they should not have lost.
Mhm.
And even though he's the person who brought them back and got them to that level, they fired him in the season
Mhm. Mhm.
because, like, hey, they just kind of accepted, hey, you're not going to be the one to get us to where we want to go. And there, lots of people are having, like, accusing that fan base of saying, how dare you think that you are just entitled to being there,
Mhm.
and good luck finding somebody better than him. He's the best coach you've had in 30 years. But they still made that move. And now, again, that could prove to look bad. They could hire somebody who now
Yeah.
loses even more than he does. But they got to that point where they felt like they needed to make that move. So, um, I think the end of this season and how things go from this, fairly dark moment here to the
Mhm.
rest of the year is going to really say a lot about how far this team can actually go and whether we have the right. And everybody talks about McDermott, but Bean deserves just as much criticism, if not more,
Absolutely.
than there. If you look
Absolutely.
at, you know, last year's draft and you go through like Keon Coleman, Cole Bishop, DeAndre Carter, or Dwayne Carter, and like, we had 10 draft picks last year. And although, Keon Coleman's not a bust, like, he's an NFL player, but like, if you just look at each pick, is this player better or worse than where they were picked at?
Mhm.
It genuinely might be like 0 for 10. I guess maybe technically like Tylen Grable might be
Mhm.
better than where he was picked at because he's a swing tackle as a backup depth piece. Like,
Yeah.
you might not have a single other player who is demonstrably better than where they were picked at. You can't go 0 for 10 like that. That can set a franchise back. And then,
Mhm. Mhm.
it will. I'm so optimistic about this year, but it's taken a while for Dalton Kincaid. Now it's maybe looking like he's breaking back out.
Mhm.
But if you look, and I don't think you can be at a point where Brandon Bean's entire claim is, hey, I'm really good at picking late round picks who are better than their value, and I picked Josh Allen. Like,
Yeah.
during that stretch, like, the Brett Veach picked Patrick Mahomes, but he also picked, Chris Jones and Creed
Mhm.
Humphrey and, Nick
Bolton.
Bolton, and
Yeah.
just hit on all these other picks that, like, he's raised the talent around Mahomes, and it doesn't feel
Mhm.
like we've done as well in that way.
Mhm. Yeah, man. Yeah, especially when you look at the team building perspective, even going not just draft but free agency as well. I think they've gone in that direction of adding a lot of, and it worked early because when they added like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, they weren't what they became as Bills guys, right? They were
Yeah.
your Joshua Palmers of the world. They
Yep.
were those kind of signings back in the day, but they became all pros. So they being and I think it's together with the coaching staff, and but they haven't been able to find those guys or develop those guys or turn those medium those average guys into all pros, pro bowler again, and so it has cost a lot for especially for Josh and the team hasn't been they have been good enough to be really good during regular season, to have a good, not this year, but to have a good defense in regular season with most of the teams. But when you're gonna face those two or three teams that are gonna really compete for a bowl, you won't have enough maybe around. Josh can go. I always talk. Josh can go toe to toe with Mahomes, with Burrow, with any quarterback, but when Mahomes needed Butker to hit that field goal in the 13 seconds, Butker went there and hit that field goal. When Josh needed Bass to hit the field goal, he missed it. When
No,
when
it's a small moment, but a very relevant example of what
yeah,
they truly
yeah,
need.
yeah. For example, Mahomes needed one extra time and to make a throw, and maybe Oliver couldn't get there against Joe Tony, and Josh needed one extra second to hit Shakir, and Chris Jones drilled Dion Dawkins over Josh. So
Yeah,
small moments, Diggs dropped, and so we are even talking about all pro caliber players in
yeah.
Dawkins, Diggs, but still we didn't have this little thing, and it goes to coaching as well because Spags, even not having the best ranked defenses in the regular season, sometimes when it went to the game is on the line, he could build something to make at least Josh think a little bit or to make things tougher, and we with the number one ranked defense, we conceded the 13 seconds. So things like that start to pile up and it's hard to swallow, right? It's really, and we start to question like, okay, and the Reid also he won again. He won with the Chiefs actually. Maybe he needed to get fired to go through that experience to reevaluate some stuff to become a better coach in his next stop. And how long can you wait for a guy to make those adjustments and become what he really could become in the same team, like year 9, how long are you going to wait and things like that. So it's really tough, and that's something that especially I can feel here in Brazil. We can see a lot of people now on Twitter talking about McDermott being fired as well or wanting it, but we know as soon as they turn it around in the regular season, a lot of those people won't go that route, and I don't know. I really don't know if it changes something for me right now. Being
Yeah.
able to just make the playoffs, compete again, because I'm not confident right now. You have enough in this roster. You have enough from your coordinators right now to be able to beat those 2 or 3 teams and make it to the Super Bowl and
Well,
maybe win it
here
all.
let's flip things around. Normally, I don't go on somebody else's show and then ask them questions,
Please.
but uh, you can now tell us about this. You have converted me from afar into a Botafogo fan, and now you guys finally were able to get over that and win a championship and to feel that feeling. So first, tell us how that felt to finally have that feeling, and now what has that done in this next season of how you manage expectations and how you experience success and failure. What has that experience been like?
Yeah, man, it's crazy because right now, as we talk, Botafogo is kind of fifth place in the national championship here. They are fighting for Libertadores. It's the equivalent of the Champions League here in South America. They're fighting for a Libertadores spot. It's not bad, but since we got over the hump last season, won it all, we won Libertadores, won the Brazilian championship, won everything, it's not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the fans aren't going to the stadium. The average is down, because they are mad. They are mad. The guy who turned it around, the new owner, the American guy, John Textor, a lot of people is against him now because he sold the best players, but he also spent a lot of money and brought new players. They just aren't as successful. It's not like he's not doing the business. It's not fair to expect to keep all those players wanting to go to Europe and play for the best teams in the world, like Almada, an Argentinian guy. He's now playing in Atletico Madrid. So you can't hold those guys. But people are already mad at the ownership because the team is not fighting for the championship again, or because we got eliminated in the playoffs of the Libertadores. And Botafogo and Bills have a lot of in common in the sense of Botafogo won titles back in the day in the 60s, 70s, and just the Bills and the AFL titles. And then again in 95 was the last Brazilian championship before this one last year. So the Bills were relevant in the 90s, making the Super Bowl. And man, we were in a really, really bad spot. Like the team couldn't compete for anything, getting relegated, getting promoted. And when we turned it around last year, it changed everything for the fan base. Like we don't remember anymore about the years that we were relegated or something. Oh, now it's good because at least we are fighting for Libertadores again. We're not in danger of relegation. No, they want to win every year again because now we have the money, we have the ownership, we have, and I kind of feel like it's time for Buffalo as a fan base want more because they have Josh. I think Josh is the equivalent of Botafogo having a new ownership and having the money to spend on great players. You have a franchise quarterback. We didn't have it back in the 17 years of the drought. So, man, it can be possible that Josh is going to be the next great quarterback to not win a Super Bowl. And we are already in year 9. How long we are going to have Josh's prime, the way he plays, takes hits, run. It's dangerous. So that's what gets us here in Brazil, especially, really impatient with this regime right now, and just like you said, we value McDermott being a lot, man, but I don't know. I think it's time, and just like you said, we're gonna root a lot for this season so they can prove us wrong and win it all this season. But it's not looking good right now, and maybe it's not gonna happen next off season. I agree with you. I don't think Pegula is gonna fire him just before new stadium and stuff like that. But if we don't win it again or don't make it to the Super Bowl this year, I expect at least them to be on a short leash from next season on or something. Like we're gonna take the next step, and it's not happening.
Yeah, it puts us in a really weird spot to be able to understand, what is good enough. And I see Diogo in the chat saying, "Are local fans satisfied with just playing for the wild card?" In Brazil, fans were at the camp training center's entrance demanding change. They haven't reached that point yet here, but I don't think it's crazy to think that they could. I do think that that's the kind of thing where we could see that kind of really negative turn for what the expectations are and what the fan base is expecting. So we'll see. I'm still very torn on what I expect the results to be and where they're going to take it, but I'm still hopeful that we're going to see things turn around, mostly because of what you said, because we still have Josh Allen.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, to close it out, I don't want to take much of your time. Can you maybe give us your take on what maybe the Bills can do to fix some stuff right now for this season and maybe turn it around, even if it looks really difficult? But do you believe the cap situation, can they add a wide receiver? Maybe Will Bean go against what everything he said and add a wide receiver right now? What would you do in his place right now? And with this situation, what would you attack?
So I do think that we'll see something. So part of it is I think there's more reinforcements coming from within the organization than many people realize. I think that our biggest asset this offseason was our first round pick. We used it on Max Hairston. It's the fastest guy in the draft. If you've seen any of his videos of his training rehab lately, it looks like he's getting very, very close. He's going to come back, and we don't know if he should be the answer, but I can tell people he is the plan. Like that's their plan at cornerback.
Is that Max Hairston's going to come in?
Contributing. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how good he does, but that's the plan: is that Max Hairston is going to come in and play. The same thing, bringing in. We've had guys like Landon Jackson and Javon Solomon needing to play a lot of reps. We've seen guys like Fedarian Mathis and Jordan Phillips and Zion Lowe get called up. We're about to bring in Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi. Those are guys that we spent like $15 million a year on combined. That's a big upgrade to when Ed Oliver or Dean Walker has to come out of the game, or when Joey Bosa or Gregory Rousseau, or actually AJ Epinesa is playing pretty well, when they're out of the game. Now we don't have the big drop off of going to a guy who's not ready like Landon Jackson, or a guy who's on the practice squad like Logue or Mathis or Phillips. That's going to make a big difference as well. So, one, there are reinforcements already coming. So that's a good thing. Two, I did spend quite a bit of time looking through, like, well, we don't have a lot of money. So there's not a lot of things out there. We, for regardless if people want us to go get Trey Hendrickson or Jeffrey Simmons or, whatever, some other superstar player. we're not in position to do that. However, there are some guys who have a pretty low salary on their current team because of the structure of how they were paid, where
Kind
we
of like
could go
Cooper
get
last
them.
year.
Yes, exactly like Amari Cooper.
Uh-huh.
Like the
Uh-huh.
reason that we went after him was because the way that his salary and bonus was structured, we only had to take on like less than $1 million. Well, there's a couple guys like that. So, two in New Orleans are both Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. Chris Olave's salary is actually only $1.5 million. We would take on like $900,000. Now they're going to want a lot for him. It would be easier to get Rashid Shaheed, who could also be our returner and a deep threat. But I looked at similar guys at like linebacker and safety. Safety is actually a place I wouldn't mind us making a trade. So, Justin Reed, Xavier Woods, Quandre Diggs, Jeremy Chin, Geno Stone. Those are all guys not making that much money and playing on teams that are losing right now. And, everybody wants to go get the best guy off of like Miami or Baltimore or the Jets. They're not going to trade us somebody who's really good, not anybody young or good. People want us to trade for Jalen Waddle. There are 20 other teams the Dolphins would trade Jalen Waddle to before they traded him to Buffalo. But some of those guys I do think we could go get. So I'd love if it's Chris Olave. I think it makes more sense to be Rashid Shaheed. Maybe Bobby Okereke in the linebacker for the Giants. I think that he still has some good football left, and the Giants aren't really going anywhere. I would probably pick Jeremy Chin out of those guys that I mentioned, but Justin Reed from New Orleans would be awful nice. And Xavier Woods and Quandre Diggs are both veterans playing pretty well still in Tennessee, that they're not a part of Tennessee's future. So maybe we see a little move around the edges like that. I think some safety depth, some linebacker depth, guys who could come in and start, but just add into that mix. Probably not a superstar that fans would be crazy about. But if we do make a small move or two like that and bring back Harrison, bring back Ogunjobi, bring back Hoyt, we'd be in pretty good shape.
Awesome, Greg. I've seen some people throwing around Calvin Ridley. I really like him, but his contract is awful, right?
We would need Tennessee to eat like $15 million.
Yeah, it would be.
And now if they want to, that sounds great. I'm not expecting the other team to eat,
probably
huge
would
amounts
have
of
to
money.
Overpay for him so they can do that, right?
Yeah, correct. We would have to give up a higher draft pick to get them to eat that money and then trade him to us. I don't expect that to be the case.
Awesome, Greg. Greg, your Portuguese word of the day for this show, okay? Demitam todo o staff. It means fire all the staff, okay? Demitam.
Fabricio, thank you. I'll work on that. I'll see if I can add that into my show.
Awesome, Greg. Thank you so much for taking your time, brother, for joining me today again. I know your schedule is crazy busy, a lot of stuff. You're always on Cover One and the guys as well. Shout out to them. Miss the guys, always interacting on Twitter at least, and great to have you on the show. Really, thank you so much. And the doors are always wide open here for you. Whenever you want to join me in the show, you are welcome, brother.
Appreciate it very much. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Awesome. And we were waiting you in Brazil to watch Botafogo at some time, right?
Yeah. Hey, I'm still working. I'm still learning. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much, brother. So, guys, that's it for the Leading the Charge today. Great talk with Greg Tompsett. Hit that like button, subscribe to Rumblings Network, subscribe to my own Fernando Schmude channel as well. Always creating content here from Bills Mafia to Bills Mafia. Also creating content in Portuguese for Brazilian Bills Mafia. And to close it out, I just want to put out this message again here for my entire, especially the Buffalo audience, because recently Bill Took, a follower from X, shout out to Bill, he put out a nice reply and a nice thread when I tweeted something about that's the reason why people, it can sound harsh, that's actually what I said, but it can sound harsh, but that's why there are people who call Buffalo a city of losers, because if you are more afraid of the drought than you are wishful and hopeful, and you really want to win it all, win the Super Bowl, make it back to the Super Bowl, you can be considered a winner. You're going to be considered a loser. You are more afraid of losing than wishful of winning. So And Bill kind of put this thread explaining that Buffalo historically it goes deeper than football, and that it's a city built by people who choose to stay instead of living to Arizona or Florida, and that mostly those are people that can't be seen as risk takers, and that's why they are so attached to McDermott and the sense of security he brings to the fan base, and being the same thing because that's the most successful the team has been since the 90s, right? And trust me, I'm no fair weather fan. I'm no Neil fan out there. I follow the Bills since the 90s as a young kid. I knew I met the Bills, right, in the Super Bowl on TV, watching Thurman Thomas running around, and fell in love with the charging Buffalo, the colors, and the Bills became my team since young age. And I grew as a Bills fan through the 2000s, right? I started producing content about the Bills in writing for Cover One, and then now Buffalo Rumblings during the drought, right? So I'm no fair weather fan. I went through the drought with you. I know what it is to not make the playoffs, how awful it is. But again, now we have a franchise quarterback. Now we have a guy comparable to, if Josh doesn't win at least one Super Bowl, it will be comparable to Dan Marino not winning one. Okay, it will be comparable to Warren Moon, even more not winning one, right? So Josh is this kind of quarterback, right? And if this staff, if this front office can build a winner around him in 9 years, how long are we gonna wait, and how long are we gonna bet them can do it? And are we ready to risk Josh's entire prime, entire career with a coaching staff that hasn't been good enough? They have been good. They've done great things. They've done good things. They've done good teams. But good isn't good enough. You've got to be great. If Josh were a good quarterback, it wouldn't be good enough. Josh is great, right? We had a good quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, and I know a lot of you just hearing his name is kind of I hate Tyrod Taylor. He doesn't take risks. He he just uh, throws a 3rd and 2 to Mike Tolbert and leaves the field in a 3rd and 17. So that's exactly what we are doing as fans, accepting not going further in the playoffs, not making it to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen. We are being Tyrod Taylor out there as a fan base. We are happy throwing a 3rd and 5 in a 3rd and 10 situation and leaving the field and putting the game on the hands of the defense, like Tyrod did so many times. Tyrod was a good quarterback. Tyrod could win several games with a strong defense, with the right playmakers around him, right? But he wasn't good enough. At some point, we had to move on. And I really believe, as fans, there isn't time anymore to be patient, to wait for year 10, year 11, year 12 from McDermott and Bean, and to see Josh being let down all the time. And I know a lot of people are already like, Josh isn't playing well. Yeah, maybe he isn't playing well because you don't give him a chance to. How did Joe Flacco come out of a trade from the Browns, go to a losing team in the Bengals, and throw more than 40 passes last night, and score and throw a lot of touchdowns, and help Jamar Chase to break a record? Maybe because he has some weapons, right? Even Flacco himself, in an interview to the Prime guys after the game, he said, look, the coach was calling some plays I was hearing, and it was like, what the heck is this play? I don't know what he's calling, whatever. And I'm gonna call my own play and throw it to Jamar Chase, and they got the job done. So maybe, yeah, I'm not, I don't, man, I'm not saying like I know more than Bean or McDermott or Brady, but sometimes people overcomplicate things, and the Bills are overcomplicating things, not playing maybe giving a chance to Jordan Hancock instead of Taylor Rapp to see what the rookie has. A lot of rookies playing around the league. Why not try the rookie who looked good in the preseason? You know, maybe we are overthinking things with our offense. Oh, we don't know better than Brady. But look, some of the things that he has called for Josh, some of the stuff that Josh has worked on, Simplify stuff and you're gonna have better results. Give him better weapons. Play your best guys in the best positions to succeed. You know, you draft Keon Coleman in the almost first round, right? Second round, first pick. Man, he played a lot of slot ball in Florida State. You're gonna isolate him as an X and force him to become something he isn't. By now, you haven't been able to notice it that he isn't your X traditional X receiver. And even if you want to keep trying him there, but moving him around, try him a little bit, give him some snaps at the slot, give him some screen passes to get him going. Play Shakir a little bit outside, he can do that. Stevie Johnson just tweeted yesterday something interesting. Sometimes you don't need the outside guy to be a real outside threat. He's running the route just to clear space for other guys. So you can play Shakir outside sometimes and use him as a decoy, right? So there are a lot of things, but you want to rotate your 6 wide receivers. Play your best guys every snap. Give them a breath, but play them, you know? Third down, Josh got to throw the ball. James Cook's not on the field. Use James Cook with more creativity. Look at what the Falcons did with Bijan Robinson. You know? So use your weapons correctly. Be creative the right way, not calling reverse plays when you can simply push it in. So a lot of overcomplicating stuff and from McDermott, man, man it up and call this defense. You are the defensive specialist. Call this defense. Call this defense. Enough of Babbage, inexperienced guy, a guy that came from your own tree. He won't do better than you. You are the master. How are he supposed to do better than you? So the best chance is with McDermott calling his defense and playing it the best possible way. Oh, but McDermott defense sucks. So if it does, we're done, right? But you have McDermott, you want his defense. When you hire Rex Ryan to be your head coach, it's because his defense. It's not because his management skills, right? If you hire Andy Reid, it's because his offense. It's not because his management skills. So McDermott got to man up and take over this defense, call it, and Brady got to figure it out and play his best plays, invest a little bit in the passing game, passing concepts, stop with trying to impose just the running game and try to win the game without Josh Allen. And then when you can't win the game without Josh Allen, just with your running game, you ask Josh Allen to save you. Enough of that. Give Josh weapons to establish himself since the beginning of the game. Make him the centerpiece of this offense. He's your best player, you know, and use your run game to complement it. So that's it, Bills Mafia, for today. Bye week. The Bills got to figure stuff out. I asked Greg about this, but yes, the reinforcements from inside the building are important, right? You expect Hoyt and Ogunjobi, they won't be your all-pros, Pro Bowl difference makers, but you expect them to be better than Landon Jackson. Landon Jackson was a third-round pick, right? It's another bad pick. But you expect Hoyt, Ogunjobi to be better than Zion Logues or than Mattis or the Jordan Phillips of the world because we spent a lot on them, right? So those guys gotta have an impact in the rotation. You expect your first round pick to impact the game positively, so you need Hairston playing well. And on the offensive side of the ball, I hope Brandon Beane can really manage his ego and can make a trade for a wide receiver. And just like Greg said, Waddle ain't happening. The Dolphins don't need to trade Waddle to the Bills, right? Same thing with Garrett Wilson and the Jets. But Chris Olave, he would be my first choice. I think Olave is the closest thing we have to Stephon Diggs when we traded for Stephon Diggs. He can get open, he can go deep, he can run good routes, he can be this kind of difference maker for Josh. Josh can elevate Olave to Diggs heights, prime Diggs heights, okay? So I'd go Olave. My second option would be Calvin Ridley if the Titans eat up that contract, right? I don't know how much you would need to overpay. Maybe the Titans, they just fired the coach. They maybe want to move on and they are willing to eat up that money for a decent pick, right? So I'd like Calvin Ridley in the Bills roster. I think Ridley still has speed to go deep. He can get open. He's a savvy veteran wide receiver. He would contribute right now. We need pieces to contribute right now, right? Then the third option, Shahid, because Shahid is a deep threat we don't have. If you want to build a everybody eats group like the Bills built, you gotta have every player for each role. And okay, you have the big guy, contested ball guy in Coleman. You have the yards after catch guy in Shakir. You have the mismatch at tight end in Kincaid. You have the tricky play guy in Moore and in Samuels. But you don't have the deep threat. Where is the deep threat? It's not Joshua Palmer. He is in a speedster. He's supposed to be your man beater, hasn't been. But Shahid is a deep threat. And Josh has done well when he's had those guys. Remember Robert Foster? He wasn't anything special, but Josh could use him a lot. Remember John Brown? John Brown did the best of the better years of his careers with Josh and the Bills. So the Bills need this deep threat, and Shahid can be this guy, even though I don't think he's an all-around weapon like Olavi or Ridley can be for this offense, and I'd rather go that route. And the last option from the ones mentioned, Jacoby Myers, because he's the last one because he's older. He's not very old, but he's more of a slot guy. He's not a speedster. Okay, he can be physical. He can get open. I know the Bills would like him because he can block in the run game, and they are familiar with him from the division from his Patriots days. So Jacoby Myers, I think he would help getting open for Josh against man, but he doesn't add that speed element that this offense is missing. That's why he's my last option on this top four that I mentioned. Waddle would be the top option, but he's obviously out of conversation, I believe, because of I can't believe the Dolphins would trade him to the Bills. If they would, I'd go Waddle, no doubt, no brainer. Add that speed guy that can become a real superstar playing alongside Josh. I hope, really hope being go that route can make that trade and help this offense. It's the only thing that would make me more confident in this offense, because right now I have no confidence in the passing game in structure. They don't have enough. They don't have the schemes, and they don't have enough of the weapons to help Josh making the passing game look easier, right? And on defense, I expect McDermott to figure it out because he's the specialist there. He's the guru there. So it's his responsibility. And if it doesn't happen and we are again making the playoffs and not winning, not making it back to the Super Bowl, then I really believe it's the last year that people are fine with that, because they gotta realize we deserve more than that. Josh deserves more than that, and we can make it out. Just like my Botafogo won a Libertadores and a Brazilian Championship in the same year. You don't know how difficult, how unlikely it was, but it happened, right? The Bills can win a Super Bowl, but you gotta win. We gotta win it as a fan base. We gotta win it and show that we won the Super Bowl, and that's it. It's time to win the Super Bowl. It's not time to be relevant, making the playoffs and be the losing side of every playoff epic game against the Chiefs. Enough of that. Okay, we have the quarterback to move on. It's not like crying, so we are so unlucky to playing against Mahomes. Josh is better than Mahomes. I've been telling you all along, all right? But McDermott isn't better than Reed. McDermott isn't better than Spags, right? Brady isn't better than Reed. Bass isn't better than Butker, right? Kincaid hasn't been better than Kelsey. Or wide receivers haven't been better than their wide receivers. Or defenses haven't been better than their defenses. So Josh alone can't make up for everything, right? We gotta help him, and I think as fans, we can make some noise and show Pegula that we need the next step. Okay, Bills Mafia, that's it for today. That's your episode of the Leading the Charge. We'll be back next week. So thank you so much. See you around, and go Bills.